everyone, this is Lisa. Welcome to my YouTube channel, In the Garden with Lisa Monique. If you've ever battled with black spot, you know how frustrating it can be. But with the right approach, you can have healthy and relatively black spot free roses throughout the season without going overboard. In today's video, I'm going to show you what black spot is, how to prevent it, and walk you through a simple once-a-week spray plan that blends both organic care with smart synthetic options. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, first, what is black spot? Black spot is a fungus. I'm going to read what it is because it's really hard for me to say. Diplocarpon rosea. Diplocarpon rosea. I think I'm saying that right. So it thrives on moist, humid, warm conditions, and it spreads via spores when water splashes on your roses or on the soil, and the spores from the infected leaves bounce back onto your plant. You'll recognize it by black round spots on your leaves. Sometimes the leaves are completely yellow. Sometimes they actually look really healthy green and you just have a bunch of black spots on them, and a lot of times it's a combination of both. Now, if ignored, black spot will spread rapidly and can totally take over your roses here in the South. It can defoliate them and weaken them over time. Now, why did I say in the South? Because if you garden in the Southeast, like Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, our long, hot, and humid summers create the perfect environment for fungal diseases. So while gardeners out west might get away with an occasional neem oil spray or not spraying altogether, we need a consistent season-long plan here in the South. And that's why I rotate both organic and synthetic products weekly to stay on top of black spot, because once it takes over a shrub, there's really almost nothing you can do except defoliate it completely, and it may take 2 months to recover from that severe of action to get rid of the black spot. So getting a regular spray program gives the best results in the most disease-prone climates. Okay, but the best spray program in the world will not do a thing if you don't practice best practices. So if your roses are really crowded and really stressed, they're still not going to do well. So here is your non-spray checklist to have the healthiest roses. First, you want to prune your roses for airflow. That means reducing a lot of the leaves if it's really thick at the bottom, and also getting into the center of your rose bush and removing the canes, again, that cause the leaves to be on top of each other. And on some of my roses, it can get really, really heavy in the center, and I just want to create a path for the air to get through the roses. And on the same token, like I have one area that I put some gladiolas by my roses, and when I first planted them, there weren't that many, but now that they have grown, it is almost a thick hedge, and it also is preventing airflow from circulating around the rose bushes behind it, so they are more black spot prone. So you would either need to remove your rose and move it somewhere else, or remove the gladiolas or thin them. I'm actually going to remove the gladiolas and put them back closer to the house where they're not going to block the airflow for my roses. You also want to water at the base of your roses, not at the leaves. Though if you are in a humid climate, I'll come out in the morning and just due to the dew point overnight, my leaves are all wet, and they've been wet for hours. Again, perfect breeding ground for black spot. Black spot here does not always start at the bottom and work its way up. It just happens everywhere because the leaves stay wet all the time just because it is so humid. But you still do want to water at the base to kind of minimize the splashing of the black spot spores. And also, if you mulch and even put clean mulch underneath your roses a couple times a year, that also will help any black spot spores that have fallen to the ground from splashing back up into your roses. And then the other thing you can do is choose varieties that resist black spot more. Now, when I order a lot of roses online. So when I look online, they pretty much all say excellent disease resistant. And really the only way to know if they really are disease resistant in your area is to ask people that have the roses in your area, Having said that, you also need to look at how they plant their roses. Your environment might be completely different than theirs. I have a lot of rose friends here, and we are constantly digging up roses, moving roses. They're giving away their roses, and I will take any rose that anybody offers me. And so they have offered me roses because they had a lot of black spot in their garden, but they do well in mine. But they tried to plant them in more of a cluster, the same variety in a cluster to make a larger looking bush. And I have the 3 shrubs spread out, and I have a lot more airflow, and I'm not having black spot issues. So how you plant and the type of roses that you purchase can make it easier to control black spot where you live. And then just by following these cultural practices, it will make your spray program more effective. So I use a mix of organic and synthetic fungicides. There are a lot on the market, so these are just the products that I am currently using. So we'll just talk really quick about them. It might be over your head, your eyes might get glazed. I do know when I first had my roses and I would listen to the more experienced rosarians talk about their spray schedule, and they would exhibit their roses, and I'm thinking, well, I don't want to exhibit my roses. I just want them to be pretty in my garden. I don't need to do all that. And then you just find out that even if you're not exhibiting, if you just want to have beautiful roses and be able to enjoy them and not be horrified at all the black spot, that you really do need to follow some of their practices. So I started slow. I started with a single fungicide, and as I got comfortable with that in my program, I started adding the other ones. So I'm going to give you what I do now, which is a weekly spray program. But I started with a twice-a-week program, the 1st and the 15th. Now I'm more familiar with, alternating fungicides, disease resistance. And I also now know that in Tennessee, I'm in Middle Tennessee, we have 9 varieties of black spot, 9 different strains of black spot. And there's not a single fungicide that is effective on all 9 strains. So that is probably why I would spray, and then I would go out the next day and think, oh my goodness, is it not doing anything? Because it seems like I have more black spot, or just as much black spot as 2 days ago when I was defoliating before I sprayed. So again, lots of different varieties, and so when you mix your fungicides, you have a better chance of covering and preventing all the different strains of black spot. So all fungicides have what's known as a FRAC code, and it's FRAC, all caps, and that stands for Fungicide Resistant Action Committee, and that is an international organization that classifies the fungicides based on its mode of action, or how they work, so that farmers and gardeners can prevent fungicide resistance. Because black spot does become resistant, it becomes a little smart, and figures out how to get around some of these fungicides. So if you constantly rotate them, then they can't figure it out, and you will have less black spot. So you have different FRAC codes. You don't really need to memorize which FRAC code is on each fungicide, unless you're trying to mix up your fungicide spray program. So I use a couple of different types of fungicides. I use an organic biological fungicide, which is a FRAC BMO2, and that is the Monterey disease control. I use a systemic fungicide, which is a FRAC 3, and that is I'm not even going to say this right. Tebuconazole. I could be saying it wrong. It is in bioadvanced disease control. And like I said, it's a FRAC 3. I use propiconazole, which is another FRAC 3. It's another systemic. And I use a product called Gunner, which is a generic available on Amazon. And it's generic for like Banner Max or Honor Guard. I use Mancozeb, which is a contact protectant. And that is a FRAC MO3. And yeah, those are the four fungicides I use. And then I also will mix in my spray program an organic insecticide, the spinosad, and a liquid fertilizer, just kind of in my mix during the season. So each one of these has its own role. The systemics work from inside the plant. The mancozeb is contact, so it works on the surface. The biologicals support the prevention, and we rotate everything weekly to avoid the resistance and overloading our roses. Prior to this, I was just using the propiconazole and the mancozeb together, and I would use them on the 1st and 15th, and that actually seemed to work pretty well at the beginning of the season for 2 months, keeping the black spot under control. But as the resistance started building up and we started getting into more humid weather, I found that that was not enough, and I really needed to get on a weekly spray program, and I really concentrated on which fungicides I wanted to use to combat the disease. Now, I say which ones that I want to use, but I also asked my Master Rosarian friends. I looked at what they were using, and those are the ones that I worked into my schedule because I know that is what works here in Middle Tennessee. You definitely want to consult with local rosarians, people from if you have a local rose society, to see what products they use also. So when should you start a spray program? I start as soon as the roses come out of dormancy. So as soon as I start to get some green leaves, I'm doing my preventative sprays to kind of keep black spot at bay. And again, I can't reiterate enough, having a regular spray program, a routine spray program, does not mean black spot free. I go out every single morning and I pick off black spot. And in general, I might be going through every other bush because they don't have visible black spot on every bush. But when I get to one, I might be picking off a handful of leaves. And that is compared to before, when I would have to defoliate the entire shrub and then the shrubs on either side because it was just so much black spot and the leaves were curled and dying back and everything, and there was just dead leaves everywhere. And so I'm trying to avoid that, but it's not black spot free. I'm still picking off leaves, several times a week off of the different shrubs. But this is the program that I am doing now. So, and I'm just going to say week 1, but you can mix it up any way you want. So my week 1, I'm going to start with my biological, and that is the Monterey disease control. That's the only one that it really is safe to mix in your liquid fertilizers at the same time. Now, I was throwing in liquid fertilizers all the time with the systemics, but I'm not sure if it was really doing anything. So I'm not sure if the ingredients in the systemics were really allowing the fertilizers to do their work and actually feed the plant like they needed to be. So I have pulled back my fertilizing onto a different schedule. So I use the Monterey and the fertilizer on week 1. Week 2, I will use one of the systemics. I want to make sure I'm using a systemic twice a month. So I'll use the BioAdvanced disease control or the propiconazole. I have on my list here to use the BioAdvanced, and that's all I will use on week 2. Week 3, I'm going to break it up again, and I'm just going to use the mancozeb, which is the contact spray. I take that back. You can mix the mancozeb, the contact preventative, with your systemics. So I actually do week 2, I will mix the BioAdvanced disease control with the mancozeb together, so I'm getting both contact coverage and systemic coverage. And then week 3, I'm only going to use the mancozeb. Mancozeb is not rain resistant, so if it's about to rain or it's going to rain, within 24 hours, you don't want to be using it. You're just kind of wasting your spray. Okay, so week 3 is mancozeb, and then maybe I'll do the liquid fertilizer later on in the week, so that I'm doing it every other week is the liquid fertilizer. And then week number 4, I'm going to do the propiconazole again with the mancozeb. So I am using mancozeb 3 out of the 4 weeks. Do not mix it with the Monterey disease control because it can affect the the bacteria that's in the organic, and then it's not going to work. So again, you would be wasting the spray. Now the other spray that I add to the rotation is the pesticide, the spinosad. Now I have always mixed the spinosad in with my systemics also, and it seems to work well. I have been told that it's fine to mix, but you do want to read your labels. Your fungicides are better to spray early in the morning before the temperatures get to 80 degrees. And then your spinosad, which is your insecticide, is better to spray in the evenings because it is harmful to bees only when wet. So if you spray it in the evening after the pollinators are done for the day and let it dry, then it should be fine and safe for them the next day. So spinosad is actually a really good insecticide. It's great on the thrips, the sawfly, all those little sucking insects, the spider mites, because it is the safest for the pollinators. You should spray a light mist on the tops and undersides of the leaves. You do not want the spray to be dripping off of your roses. So you just want a light coating. If it drips a little, that's fine, but you really don't want total saturation on the leaves. And then if you're using the mancozeb, which I do mix in with everything except for the Monterey, you also want to be spraying the soil because it can inhibit the spores from growing and spreading on the soil also. So yeah, that's how I spray. Just a light spray. And I use a 2-gallon Chapin pump sprayer. I have 2 of them. So I'll fill both of them up before I start spraying. I can do almost the entire front yard with one. Then I just, switch over to the second one, and then I can do the backyard too. Right now, with my 200 plants, 100 of them being first year, I really only need about 3 gallons, just a little over 3 gallons of spray. I can do about 50 plants per gallon. When my new roses get larger and fuller and have more leaves, I'll probably need the full 4 gallons to spray. So the more leaves you have, the larger the plant, the older the plant. Again, the more spray you will go through, and you'll kind of figure it out on your own. But right now, I like to have the 2-gallon pump sprayers when I'm mixing. And again, as soon as I'm done, I rinse them out. You want to rinse them out like 4 or 5 times, especially if you're going to use the sprayer for anything else, like your fertilizer or anything else. And then you also want to make sure you pump and force water through the hose because you want to make sure that you're not keeping those chemicals in the hose. And you want to do that before you store them because you don't want to store them in the heat and have all those chemicals in the heat. At the same time, you don't want to keep all of your chemicals stored outside. If you have a insulated garage or a basement or something where you can kind of keep them in a little bit more temperate climate, and most of your fungicides and insecticides will last a couple of years if they're stored correctly. So just remember, you don't have to spray constantly, but if you do have the right rotation, spacing, timing, picking off the leaves with black spot, on a weekly basis also, you really can manage your black spot so that you can really enjoy your roses and feel like they're just not always looking diseased and horrible, because that's happened to me. So again, I hope this video was informative for you. Again, especially this is geared towards those in those southern states. I appreciate everyone being here. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. I do read all the comments and I will get back to you. As always, thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.